This is the True North Collective podcast, a gathering of unsugar-coated conversations on authenticity, created by the real-life documentation of everyday humans fearlessly finding their true north.
Welcome to Season 3 of the podcast. Welcome to the True North Collective podcast. Today's episode, there are not going to be any guests. It's Rachel and I. It's been about 4 months since we did an episode, just the two of us. Back in April, we did the Who the Fuck Am I episode where we talked all about our identities and got into our lives and what was happening in the midst of COVID. And we thought it'd be fun just to catch up. A lot has changed in both of our lives. There are new realities that we're wrestling with and just trying to figure out. And a part of this podcast journey for us is really that we do share the journey, not only our guests' journeys, but both Rachel and I are in a constant state of growth and learning and unlearning. And we want to be able to share that with you all too. We don't have all the answers. Our lives can be a mess, and we're all just trying to figure it out and figure out how to be the most authentic versions of ourselves each and every single day. So we hope you enjoy this conversation and get to see an inside look into our lives. Enjoy. So we ready to check back?
I'm like so nervous because I don't know what we're going to talk about.
We're just going to talk about life. Great. We'll catch up. What's happening? You know?
Yeah, it's a very big question.
Yeah, what it's like to be living in this 2020 world. I think so. The last time you and I had a conversation, just you and I, at least in the podcast, obviously, was back in April, when we talked about identity.
Was that before or after the COVID episode?
After.
Wow.
Because it was the last day in my apartment in SLO. And since then, I'm like six places. 6 places I've lived in separation.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. Wait, I thought the last place, because you were in Paso Robles,
yeah.
Or what's it called? Robles.
Yeah. Paso Robles. I don't know. Everyone says it the gross way, and now I can't remember.
I know, me neither.
Paso Robles. That's how everyone, I don't think that's it, but that's how people say it.
Yeah, I think
Paso
so
Robles is I feel like the proper.
It's the pretty way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I a lot. I'm in the process of my coaching certification, as you know, another one that I'm doing. And so I'm kind of in the final stages of that. So the next 2 months, I should hopefully complete that, which would be awesome. And then I got myself one of those, I got a salt cup for a period cup, you know?
Oh, I don't have any idea.
The
is
cup?
That like a menstrual cup?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I was like, salt cup. Does it have salt in it?
The brand is called Salt.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm testing it out right now, and it's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm so in all that right now.
I was really nervous. I was sweating all day. And I texted Megan, who was on the Enneagram podcast, because she's the one who was like, you gotta get the salt cup. She was like, you keep putting tampons into your body. It's so toxic. And I was like, you're right. I do need to not do that anymore. And so I got the soft version, but I was super nervous, but it was really easy. There's things, when you read the instructions, it's okay if you think you've lost the cup inside of yourself. You haven't. So it's rule number 1, relax.
That is terrifying.
If you still can't get it out, then email this person.
Oh my God.
But I took it in and out a bunch of times today. Well, 3 times today. And then I was like, well, I sit on the floor when I do this podcast, so I'm going to see what it feels like when I do that. So far, so good. Like, I think, yeah. They say to test it out before you actually have your period which I'm really glad I thought of that. Because, yeah, it's going to be an adventure.
It will be. This is like not exactly the same, but you're reminding me when I got my roof rack for my stand-up paddleboard, the directions on it were terrified. Like it was just like it was showing a picture of like no wind, and then it's like a car flipping out over you, like just like all this shit that could go wrong. I was like, what the hell, Yakima? Like none of this crossed my mind, and now I'm scared that my car's just gonna flip over if it's windy.
Dude, wind is no joke.
Yeah, I am still worried.
When I moved to Milwaukee, so for those of you who are listening who have never been to Milwaukee, there's a bridge there called the Hone Bridge, and it like goes up over like near the lake, not over the city, but it's kind of like a very prominent, well-known bridge. And when I first moved there, I was driving on it, and it's like you could feel the wind up there, and I was freaked out, and I was like, Dylan, oh my God, the wind. And he's like, yeah, somebody once I don't know if he said like the wind pushed them off the bridge or like something. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Oh my God. And I was freaking out, which it was not true. And he literally just recently was like making a joke about it. And then I was just like, I can't believe that they have that bridge open if people have like gotten pushed off because of the wind. It's so irresponsible. And he was like, no, that's not true. I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, do you know how much cars weigh? I'm like, yes. That's why I was like, I cannot believe that happened and that they kept it open.
That's what I keep telling myself with my paddleboard. I'm like, my car is just, I mean, you cannot fit anything else in it. So it's as heavy as it possibly can be. It's a car. I was like, no way can a car flip over with a paddleboard on top of it. I'm just like, I don't know what this dumb diagram was, but Yakima, stop putting these ideas in my head.
Yeah, seriously.
Come for you. I'm going to at you.
So tell everybody where you've been since then, because you've been all over the place.
I really have been. So since our last catch up, and I had my apartment in San Luis Obispo, and with everything that happened, I don't really know how much we got into it, but just with COVID and things changing and losing income sources, and at the time we were selling the condo, and I was paying both the mortgage and rent, so I ended up actually moving back into the condo for a bit, and then that finally sold. And then, as Rachel just said, I got an Airbnb up in Paso Robles, which is like 30-40 minutes north of San Luis Obispo, and I'll give it a little holler, even though I'm still not drinking. It is, I think it actually has more wineries than Napa. So it's like the biggest wine area in the United States, which I didn't go to any wineries because COVID and everything. But in my mind, it's like, I live in wine country. So I did that for a bit, and just a little over a month. And then I packed up everything, drove to Las Vegas for a night. Don't worry, I didn't interact with anyone there from a COVID standpoint. Avoided people. And then went to Salt Lake to stay with a few of my friends. Was there for about 3 weeks. And I went down to southern Utah, to Moab, stayed there for about a week. And now I'm in Leadville, Colorado, which is the second highest city in elevation in the United States. Apparently it has the brewery here. They claim that they are the brewery at the highest elevation. So I have a thing here, 10,152 feet elevation is where it rests.
That's awesome. What's been your favorite thing so far?
Ooh. It's been so much. I would say, I don't even know if I can pick a favorite. I mean, Moab is beautiful. So just like being there, and also just having that time for myself again was really nice. A part of, I feel like a lot of this journey for me is, it is getting to know myself again. It's getting confident in my abilities. I think sometimes for me, I I get like, people probably don't believe this about me, but like I get scared and like I think of all the bad scenarios in my head pretty easily, and I have to like talk myself into things. So even in Moab, there were certain hikes that I would read, and like one was like moderate, I don't know, but a bunch of people were like, you have to do this and there's a ladder climbing and da-da-da. And I was like, okay, I was like, should I be doing this by myself? Like, I don't want to get hurt and be in the middle of nowhere with no cell service. And like, I feel like that's where my mind always goes. And then like, whatever, just like try it. You can always turn around. And I mean, it was super easy and absolutely fine. And I just like, I was carrying my damn dog like up ladders and stuff, you know, like my 15-pound dog. So it's fine. But I do think it's fun. Like just, yes, there are things that you have to worry about as a solo female traveler, of course, but just remembering that I'm like safer than I think in my head sometimes. And that it's like not that bad or not that scary to just travel around by yourself. So I think that's really cool. I mean, it's great to see my friends Nick and Brian and like have them show me around Salt Lake, and just I haven't lived with anyone other than a significant other in a while. So it's kind of fun. Like, I mean, it's, 3 weeks, so it was like fun to have roommates that you love and care about, and like roommates, I don't know, house guest. I did like dishes and took out the trash and everything, so I consider myself a roommate. And yeah, so that was really fun. And then yeah, up here it's just like I feel like I'm just getting the opportunity to continue to practice being me and stepping into this new person that we probably talked about last time in the identity episode, of like just trying to figure out like who is Jenell in her 29th year of life, and who do I want to be in my 30s, and just practicing and practicing and practicing and paying attention.
What's been the most surprising self-discovery you've uncovered since you've been traveling while also self-discovering?
All the questions.
I don't really know what I'm going to talk about, so I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions.
No, this isn't about me. The thing that's coming up really recently, and I talked about this, but we recorded an episode with Emily on intimate relationships, and I have been practicing really just trying to like own where I'm at, and it's really hard for me. Like in 2020, we've kind of gone in and out. Like it's been, I'm like so excited about this year, and I think I'm actually going to look back on it like fondly, apart from there's obviously a lot of horrific things happening. And like I've never experienced depression like I have until this year. Like, there's a lot of quote unquote negative things. But at the same time, like just sitting in those things and being able to walk away from it now, and not being as afraid to say like, yeah, I am kind of a fucking mess right now. And not really, but kind of, right? Like, it's like a healthy growing mess, but like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and like really being able to own that, and try to find the balance, because I know, like, I've learned about myself this year too, like how much I actually have been sort of a performer. Like, it's easy for me just to step into what I think people want, even if I don't think that's what I'm doing. It's like so much of a default, and I think we all do it. It's like, it's the people pleasing. So having those moments of just like, this is me, period, no explanation, just like, this is where I'm at, and then trying to not spiral out around it either. Like when you're sharing those vulnerable parts of yourself, and just be like, said it, it's my truth. Your reaction does not make it invalid or anything else. And I'm just going to sit here and be really, really uncomfortable, but this is actually me. So take it or leave it. So I don't know if that's like quote unquote surprising, but I feel that it's been interesting. And I talked about, I had like my first vulnerability hangover. It's like a Brene Brown term, where you open up to someone and you feel really good while you're doing it, and then the next day I was just like, fuck, like that kind of sucked actually, and now I'm just spiraling, and it feels so icky to feel this exposed. But like, I know this is what I want, to be able to like be that exposed and just be in my own truth, and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So that has been, I've never experienced that before, which therefore means I've probably never been vulnerable. Or I mean, I think I have, but just like in safer spaces. Like I think I'm taking bigger risks. Like it's not like you or Joaquin or Jess or like friends that I've had for a long time where it's easier obviously to be like, okay, well, you know me, we have history. Like here's another layer of me. It was more like, you don't know me that well, you can walk away, but this is where I'm at. This is my truth.
Yeah, I hear a lot of staying connected to what's important to you, even though it feels scary. And then in that too, it's like almost remembering what is, I've been playing a lot with like what's dangerous here and what's just like my own perceived barrier of fear, fear barrier
Yeah.
that actually isn't dangerous. It's just new and different. And I hear you being able to like gut check the feeling with like, what did I say that I actually wanted? It was this. I am safe. Okay, I'm going to sit with this. That's what I'm hearing anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that's super accurate because it's not like any of it's not safe. It's not like I'm doing, like, I don't feel like I'm really actually overexposing myself or like giving it all away, but I'm exposing myself more than I normally do in these types of scenarios. So it is just like, yeah, it's practicing, and
Yeah.
it is really uncomfortable and it's scary, but not, it's still safe, even if
Okay,
you feel the fear.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you, you're going to be so annoyed that I'm asking you this question. What does it feel like in your body to own where you're at? How do you know that you're doing it?
Hard hitters. This is like my life coaching session, apparently. Didn't realize this was gonna happen today. How do I think there's sort of like a steadiness or like a healthy weight, if that makes sense. Not like a heavy weight, but like a grounding in it, where even as I was sitting in a vulnerability hangover, and I was like straight up fucking sobbing, which I probably just needed to release something anyway. I think it was like accumulation of weeks of me not crying and just moving quickly. It was just like, I know I'm so uncomfortable and I'm scared right now, but that grounding of like, this is actually what you keep saying you want to develop. And so it's almost like the weight that keeps you from floating away into your emotions or like into your fears. It's like, no, this is okay. Like if I check in my heart, that feels grounded, like that feels okay. Whereas my head will spiral, like my stomach will feel the anxiety, but my heart can be like, actually, you're in the right place, even if the rest of your body is freaking out right now.
Yeah, I ask because for different reasons, but I'm playing a lot with recognizing, there's so many layers to this, but I'm playing with, in this certification program that I'm in, it includes an 8-week mindfulness course. And they have you, and I've never done mine. I mean, maybe people have shared this with me, but it didn't sink in. So it is now. But what I'm really taking feels new. But what I've taken from it is the practice. They have us do it in a lot of, different ways, whether it's an actual sit, a formal sit, or an informal practice of like when you're showering, just like actually taking a shower and naming what you're feeling without making an evaluation. So, and then noticing when you've made an observation that would only be made by you through your perception. And so I've been playing a lot with that throughout my days of like just seeing how much I'm just playing out an evaluated observation versus actual reality. And yeah, and so part of that is in being able to sit with what is my reality or reality, and when I can, and then owning it. So it's like that whole process of like being able to recognize it and then choosing to honor your reality. So it doesn't mean you see your reality and you don't like it, so you avoid it. It's like seeing the reality and honoring it to the point where you allow yourself to process in whatever way that you can, say whatever you need to, whatever that is, make a boundary, speak a request, whatever. And then it's that the next step of it too, of actually then staying in the reality and recognizing when the response that you might get or lack of response becomes like the next set of the evaluation that you create or whatnot. And so the completion of me actually being myself is like checking in to what you said, like checking in with like, okay, I said I wanted to be myself, so I'm doing that. Being myself right now feels really wobbly. That's okay. I still said that I wanted to be here, so keep going. And it's like every step of the way continuing to just check in. And I too find that, especially when I'm practicing really being real, like real for me, I get in my head too. Like very much the ego, the inner critics are just like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, oh, you think you can get that? Oh, that's, and so like befriending that, you know, maybe not in the moment, but just like making a note, like, okay, I'm gonna have to come back to that. I don't know who you are, but we're gonna have a conversation. And then recently, somebody was doing remote Reiki on me. It's a woman that I'm in coaching with. She's awesome. And actually, I'm gonna ask her if we can link to her in the show notes because she's so cool. But so she did a Reiki clearing, a remote Reiki clearing on me that she was just inspired to do. And she's been taking notes. And so she had this note in there that was like, stop using your thoughts. It was like basically delineating, like a lot of times I'll think about the head as being like the bad place, you know, like don't get stuck in the head. But she was speaking to
Don't get in the head.
Don't get stuck in the head. But she was speaking to the third eye as this space that is really like where wisdom, analytical wisdom from the prefrontal cortex can make its way through. And so I was like, oh shit, again, nothing's really good or bad, you know? And so I was like, the head is not a bad place. And where is this information coming from? And then of course I have like all my clients show up with like, where are you getting that wisdom? My head. Where are you getting that wisdom? My head. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh, the third eye. Maybe it's coming from the third eye. Maybe it's coming from. So yeah, it's been cool to just be, that was like I don't really know where it was going. It was just more unpacking in live time. But yeah, to really feel that owning of self, I agree with you. There's, I was going to say duality. I don't think that's the right word. I mean, there's layers to it. It's more complex, and I can feel like the truth, and I can also feel my like safety responses going off too at the same exact time.
Yeah. You and I were Marco about this earlier, but there is a book that we're both reading / listening to called The Change Triangle. And I bring it up because, like, without going into it, and we can link to it, basically you have all these reactions and there's a core emotions that you can experience, and then and I forget the term, I should reread it before I explain it, but there's these other emotions that a lot of times are actually sort of like blockers. And that was something for me that really opened my eyes, was that I feel anxious, and a lot of times we classify anxiety as a negative. And I feel anxious when I'm not able to express these other core emotions, like sad. I mean, for me, a lot of times it is sadness or anger or whatever it may be. And I had always just been like, I'm an anxious person. Like, I don't know. I've just kind of always been like this. And reading that book and seeing that anxiety is actually this safety measure for my body. It's like something is happening and you haven't, like you as in me, haven't created this safe space to be able to express these core emotions, or like haven't felt it yet. So like anxiety is basically just blocking you from feeling those things because you're so used to just not feeling sad or not feeling mad or not being able to express it. So then your state is anxious. And it's been interesting. Like, yes, my life looks really different right now. And yes, I still experience anxiety, of course, but I do feel like I experience it less frequently than I used to, because a lot of times when I'm feeling it now, I pause and I'm like, okay, something's happening here. Like, I need to take the time to figure it out. And a lot of times it is because I'm like sad, or, you know, something else is coming up, or, you know, or sometimes it's even like a boundary was crossed and I haven't used my voice. And that's something I've been exploring this year too, is just finding my voice again. Because I definitely feel, not that I've lost it, but in the evolution of everything, that I don't feel as confident now in using it as I used to. Like, I used to really feel a strong sense of who I was at that time, which is true, I think, you know, in that evolution, that version of me. And now that I'm stepping into a newer version, it does feel shaky. And it's just been interesting to play with that concept and see where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like, I'm excited. I'm excited that we have all these recordings. Not that I'm gonna like go back and listen to them all, but just as
I
like,
do.
I mean, I
have
do
to
too.
read my journals back and like highlight things.
I am
and
not.
like,
There's like a thing where it's like, what kind of journal keeper are you? Are you a burner or a keeper or something like that? And I'm totally I'm a burner. I'm a total burner. My mom's a keeper.
I finished my first journal and I actually went through and highlighted shit. And I was like, theme. You said this here. Like, I just went through like taking notes. Like,
yeah,
here's my paper on my last year of life.
See, and that's good. I mean, that's great. I just can't. It's just like, I don't think I'm that succinct, first of all. I'm like shiny object, not like, yeah. Anyways, oh God. But I think it's cool, the idea that, you know, as much as I have said, there's no silver bullet, there's no perfect answer. And I do believe that, but it's like, you know, out in the wild, in real life, I don't know, there's still like this secret little like, but if I have enough information, then, you know, I'll get majority of the stuff I want to deal with again. And that is just not true. You know, there's always new layers and new aspects of ourselves to be revealed. I mean, this year has forced everybody to re-examine all sorts of different aspects of who we are as humanity, who we are as individuals, collective. And in that, it's like, of course, things are going to get shaken up and you're going to start to go, wait, whoa. I mean, I don't remember if it was a recording that I shared, but I had watched, shit. What's that movie where the people are in the head?
Inside Out. Yeah.
And like where all of her islands start to crumble, like that's what it has felt like this year for me. And I too had like a really solid sense of like, okay, I'm still figuring it out, but like I've got these foundational elements, and like it's all just been totally blown up. And I guess it's teaching me that this is a journey. Like, and that's why with this podcast, and we're always like, what are the 5 steps to da 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 da? And it's like, it's not that. It's those 5 steps or the whatever plan would literally just be, how do you stay connected enough to listen to where you are now? And now, and now, and now. And that's it, because it's not even about a feeling that you're trying to grasp. It's like, Yeah. And so I just think it's really cool that we're going to have recorded evidence over our lifetime of that, of proof of that, because we're both so passionate about this and what does it mean, and not just in getting evidence from others, but learning what other people are saying and then taking it in and discerning it for ourselves. But through that, even just the past 3 years, it's like there's always something new to uncover. We're always evolving, we're always growing. Like, I'm not the same person that I was when we started this. You're not the same person that you were. I'm not the same person that I was 3 months ago. It's like we're always getting new information to sit with and invite us to recheck in. It's almost like Preston's episode that we just did on religion, where it's like he said something, I think you shared the video, is something along the lines of like, wouldn't you want to know all the different ways, all the different religions, so that you could reconfirm your belief structure? And that's almost what it feels like. I have these like tentative beliefs and tentative foundations, and every single second, every day, every person I meet, every experience I have is an opportunity for me to reaffirm or change my core shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. And just like doing it without shame, at least for me, it's
hard.
just like remembering you do have permission to be a completely different person tomorrow than you are today. If that's really what you want to be and who you want to be. And it's hard. Like I feel like for me, I'm pretty sure I've journaled this, haven't highlighted my new journal yet, but I've talked about the simple analogy of caterpillar, butterfly, whatever. And I feel like I'm in the butterfly stage mostly, like still trying to figure out how to use my wings and everything, but like in the butterfly stage, but yet there's like one little insect leg that's like still wanting to hold on to the cocoon and just be like, no, don't let go. That's the path. Like, how do you just let go of that old self? And it's not a full let going. Obviously, we can still acknowledge it and recognize that it's part of our journey, but there is a grieving process that comes, I mean, with all of us. I think when I think about 2020 journey, like as many of us have let go of so much. And with every opportunity to let go of something old to build something new that I actually want moving forward, there's a lot of grief in that. And that's why anytime I mention the core emotion, I feel like it's always sadness. And I think it's just because I am grieving. Like, I'm grieving letting go of an old identity. I'm grieving letting go of a relationship. I'm like grieving letting go of these expectations and things that I thought were going to happen and didn't end up happening. And again, I think it's all good. Like, I think it's getting me closer to this new state and person that I want to be. But bless but it's still a letting go process, and it's still sad, even if you know that everything is going to turn out and it's all working for you.
Yeah, I think that there have been times along this journey where I've looked at you being almost 10 years younger than me and been like really judging towards myself, because I was like, you fucking started this shit when you were 25. How are you going through the same stuff as somebody who is just starting 10 years younger than you? You've been doing this for, I don't know how long that is then, like 13, 12 years. It's like, and I was like really judgy. And I think part of that is me really seeing, like, I don't actually, or as I've wrestled with that, and been like, it's not true. Like, I did grow a lot. I did learn a lot. I did become an evolution, revolution, an evolved version of myself when I turned 30, like there were moments through this where I evolved and I became the person that you met, that you were like, oh my gosh, I need to be around this person. Like I was much more me than ever before. And and yet now I'm here at 37 recognizing that there's another iteration that's ready to peel back. And so as you were saying butterfly, I think that I too have held on to that imagery, and it's so interesting. So earlier this year, or I don't know, whenever, sometime this year, I have spirit guides that I consult with, and one of them showed up. It was a yellow snake, and almost like the Britney Spears boa constrictor, but not that big. And I was like, snakes have never been a thing for me at all. And every time I'd be like, are you sure you're my guide? And it'd be like, yes, I am. They don't talk to me. It's more like I have I know what it is that they're saying to me.
It
Anyways.
definitely talked to you like that. I hear like this. Yes. I see the tongue.
Yes. But anyway, so I've kind of like sat with it. It's been with me. It still is. And I love it. And as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not a butterfly for me anymore. It's a snake. It's like just skin that gets shed off as I get more information. And it does make sense that I would be like, our cycles of transformation just happen to coincide. And it's not a matter of having gotten anywhere. Like, I'm just shedding the layer of skin that I'm ready to shed. You're shedding the layer of skin that you're ready to shed. And we just happen to be on a really similar cadence right now. And who knows if that'll like stay the same as this continues to evolve. It'll be really interesting to see, because we have maintained like a really similar cadence together, which has been cool to capture, even though we're going through such different things. And I guess I've never really been able to like put that together until just now as we're talking, that it's not the same, but it is the same. And it will come again. Like, and that's, we've been talking quite a bit about like monogamy, and that's the thing about that is so crazy to me. And I don't know, I think I've gone back and forth on whether or not like monogamy is good, monogamy is bad, marriage is good, marriage is bad. And it's neither, right? But like, what does that actually mean? But I think it does have a lot to do with like, what's your ultimate intention and goal? And how do you want to use that experience for you? And if it, what are your goals? What is important to you? So it's like, I think I've always been seeking outside of myself of like, do you stay or do you go? Is it more important to, fight always for the thing because of whatever? Or is it more important to leave because you need to be there for you and like fight for you? And it's like, you have to decide. And everybody always says like, there's no right or wrong, you just know, but you do have to decide what is the experience that you actually want to have, what is most important to you. And it doesn't mean it's either or. It means you could still do monogamy for the life cycle that relationship is. And then can you check in at whatever point where you're feeling disconnected and say, now what do I want to experience? Now, what is it time for me to experience? Is it time for me to lean in and figure this out? Is it time to go separate ways? It depends on so much. It depends on where you're at. What skin are you shedding? What are you trying to step into? Your partner, the universe, like what's going on around you. So
there's just so much detachment in that. And we've had these conversations. In my mind, I want to have like be married at some point, and I want to have that relationship where I get to do life with someone. But then we talk about all the these things and how much we can change, and just even my past experiences and my last relationship, like how much I changed. And it's very hard for me then to say like, how can anyone promise anyone forever? How?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
And I don't, yeah, like, and I don't, like, I want someone to promise me forever, but like not at the expense of like us both being miserable and not being
Yeah.
ourselves. So then it's just like, yeah, I don't know, like what is relationship? What is friendship? And then I start to feel really lonely because I'm like, well, that you like you can't hold on to anything because at some point
Go
you're
ahead.
going through life, this journey, like kind of on your own. Like you will have people that'll show up right when you need them. Like I can see that. Like I see that all the time in my life. Like this was the person I needed at this moment in time. Sometimes it's for a season. Sometimes it's for a reason. Maybe. There's like some quote I feel like people always talk about. And sometimes it's for a lifetime, maybe. I don't even know because what is a lifetime? But longer than that.
I feel like there's an and in it of like,
yeah.
Can it, and that's the invitation of possibility. Like, can it
Mm-hmm.
be monogamy? And you're both honest enough that when it gets to the point of, I don't know, Bruno like had a phrase that I cannot totally recall, but she was like, it's not till death do us part. It's like till, it was something else, but like basically till the death of this connection do us part or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like allowing, you know, not giving yourselves an easy out, like making the commitment of like, let's do everything we can, but not at the expense of our hearts. And we're going to be honest enough that if that's the case, we know that that is a reality and that's okay. So I don't know. That's kind of what I've been playing with is, can it be an and that was one iteration. There's probably a zillion other iterations of how it can be, because I too feel the same way. Like, not because society is telling me to, but I would like to experience the experiment of marriage between two people who really want to just give it a try wholeheartedy, but who will make sure that they are not doing it at the expense of their themselves. Yeah. And not that there isn't compromise, but it's like, I think it takes pretty aware people to be able to tell that line. And I know myself, like I'm still, you know, finding those nuances and understanding those differences.
I had shared this with you and I had this conversation, I don't know, this is probably beginning of 2020 even, and I had talked about how if you would have asked me, you know, 5 years ago or whatever, a while back, about divorce, I could never want a divorce. Worst fucking thing in the world. Could never. Not, you know, whatever. And now I'm just like, I don't know, like, is that just a part of living life? Like, not necessarily. Everyone's life can go different. Like, you could find that partner that really does stick with you for your entirety of life. But I'm also just like, well, can we just be happy we had those connections when we had them and we learned what we needed to learn from them, and then also potentially be really fucking happy that you get to do it again? I mean, maybe not. Maybe you choose to stay single afterwards, but I think a lot of people do end up finding a new partner, a new relationship. Maybe it's not in the same system. Maybe it's not marriage. Maybe it's just dating. But like that is also pretty cool too. Like to have these teachers in your life through relationship that like when there was, and I wish I remember what podcast it was. She used to talk about how relationships are basically just like a jungle gym for the mind. And I feel like once you can either like have that jungle gym stay exciting and you're still learning because the jungle gym's kind of changing and like you're both still playing on it, or you have a new rendition of the game and you're still playing, but you're still playing the same game, or you outgrow it. And that's fine. Like then it's fine, time to find a new jungle gym to play on, but that doesn't have to be bad. Like, yes, it might be very painful. And again, it's that grieving process of letting go of an old expectation or version of self. But I've just been playing with that because I used to be just so against it. I'm just like, no, like this, you know, I grew up with parents that are high school sweethearts. They've been together for almost 40 years. Like that was my modeling. And so anything outside of that, it just seemed, I'm like, no, that wouldn't be the kind of relationship I'd want. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like, would it really be that bad? Like, I think what would be worse is to be trapped in a relationship I don't want to be in just for the sake of deciding that that's what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm married to this person.
Yeah, and that's the question we each have to ask ourselves the whole way. And like, truly, and not that it's impossible, but to expect that two random people are going to be able to evolve at the same frequency and cadence, and not that you have to. I mean, I guess, you know, it could be that there are ways of being at different places and still, like, maybe it eventually like catches up again or whatever. I mean, anything's possible. But what I heard in that too from you was the acknowledgement of what how you respond to the world openly. And so whereas before you might have responded with, shaming energy even, but now you aren't. And like that's huge, I think, because nothing changes if nothing changes. And how it changes is, I mean, openness and accepting and trusting that people know what's best for them. And
It's like trust is, I don't think this was my original 2020 word, but it's definitely all the time. Like anytime I have a problem, I'm like, just trust and it'll work out how it's supposed to work out. And like your problem is solved basically. I mean,
as long
it's
as
like more complicated than that, but.
well, and I can agree with you because I know you're putting in your work, and not because I'm validating your work, but because you've told me I'm doing all this work, and you're not just kind of like sitting back and like, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. It's like
not
there's like a
there's an intent.
yes, exactly. There's like a proactive trust, and you're co-creating the experience with the world around you. And that to me is different than just blind trust of like,
crossing your fingers
making a
and hoping for the
face.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, because I think for me, I've always known that I can take actions to like push myself forward, but then I want to be able to control the outcome, and that's like where the trust comes for me. It's like, okay, you can't control any of this other shit. You can't control other people's responses. You can't control their feelings. You can't, control situations. Like really, there's not that much that we have control in. So how can I take action to move me closer to who or what I want to be, and just like trust that everyone else's journey, if it's meant to like collide with mine, dance with mine, fucking explode with mine, because I've had a few of those, like that is all how it needed to work out. But it's hard. I don't think I realized how much of like a controller I wanted to be, and like when things didn't turn out my way, how much of a victim I like to be. It's just like, this is like your fault, you did this to me, and then like now I'm just like, oh, I didn't put up a boundary, and not like in a I suck kind of way, but like I didn't put up a boundary, I didn't use my voice, I'm mad and annoyed because I didn't speak my own truth. And just like bringing it back in, it's like not about that person, like it's you. Focus on you, and remember that you are choosing everything in your life, basically. I mean, there's some things, yes, like bigger systems that are harder to get out of and whatnot, but in my day-to-day, for the most part, like I'm choosing where I'm at, and if I don't like it, it's kind of my own fault.
Yeah, yes, and I actually have the tendency of then turning on myself. And so I have to work really, really hard still to recognize when so for like my younger years, it was easier for me to point the finger at everybody else as a way to control, because I knew what was going to happen if I didn't do that. And then I stopped doing that, and then I really strongly pointed the finger at myself, and it was harsh. And so I think I'm like in recovery from my own self-abuse, and so I'm learning I'm learning how to recognize when I am holding myself accountable in a really bullying way that is not actually helpful. But there's something that I wanted to share that, again, Bruno and I have just been talking like crazy lately. And we were talking about controlling versus aligned and integrated actions. And so, because her and I like both talk about like, am I controlling this right now? Am I trying to control this right now? Or is this like just what I want and that's okay? And so for whatever reason, control versus aligned and integrated, that language landed for me in this post on Instagram of being able to ask myself, am I trying to control somebody else? Am I trying to control myself? Or is this something that feels aligned and integrated for me? And I am then acting from that space, whether that is making a request, is making a boundary, not speaking potentially, but is it aligned and integrated? Is this how I would act if I loved myself? Or am I just trying to control and be loved, be validated, or hide my own lack of security with myself, or my own mask my own feelings of feeling like I'm a bad person? So yeah.
Absolutely. And I say it like, I'm like, oh, I'm trusting, but I did the same exact thing. I feel like I'd always blamed people. Then I started to take accountability, and I still do. But then, like, I had so much compassion for all these other people that normally I would have blamed them. Now I'm like so compassionate towards them, and I had zero, like, I'm maybe not zero, but I had very little compassion for myself. And so that has been a practice that I'm still, same thing. It's just like, I'm still just trying to be like, it's okay. Like, it's no, like, it's not anyone's quote unquote fault, right? Like, we all make mistakes. Stop expecting to be, I don't know, just stop expecting yourself to be anything. Like, you're still fucking human. And I think some of the best humans constantly mess up and constantly fail, and they just learn and move on. And that's really the hard, that's the hard part a lot of times, because we're not, like, failure and trying is not typically celebrated. And so we all think we have to get it right. And that, like, this space that we've been creating, the conversations we've been having, whether it be an Amplify or, in other relationships for me, I'm like, I'm just trying to remember that, what if my goal was to fail as much as fucking possible and just to be okay with that, and to know that I tried to live and I tried to experience things, and I jumped off fucking cliffs just to see what would happen. And you and I talked about this, like, yes, with some guardrails, so it's not just completely unsafe. But I don't want to wake up in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, if I'm lucky enough, to live that long, and feel a sense of regret that I didn't try.
And the fact of the matter is, go ahead.
Go for it.
I was going to say, the fact of the matter, we've never done this before. The fact of the matter is that there's always going to be regret for something. Like, there's always something that you're not going to be able to do it all. And that's what I've been sitting in like looking back on the last, I don't know, the scariest thing for me was like to go into my 20s and 30s and like waste it, and not taking full advantage. And it's like, who's to say? And, I did do big things, and there are now other big things I want to try, and some big things I did that I want to do more of. And I don't know, time is just such a construct. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot it. So.
Yeah. I sent you these lyrics, and there's a song that came out by Wingtip, and just like, I was like, damn it, I feel like I wrote that. But one of the lines is just like, too scared to settle, but too scared to try. Just feeling so feeble, like in the prime of your life. And I was like, yep. I think I'm trying, and don't think I'm settling, but like that is the space that I feel like I'm constantly in. It's like I'm too scared to just like stick with this thing that I feel like I'm settling for, but then it's like it's so fucking scary to try. And I just feel like I'm in the middle, you know, shaking in my fucking boots, just like, oh, what am I gonna do? Do I jump? Do I do like what? None of these like seem okay. And I think for the most part I am jumping and I'm trying, but that's not necessarily what it feels like, you know, like
Yeah.
in my head.
Again,
When
though,
I'm
like
doing it.
there's no way for it to not, like, hindsight is 2020. That's why that's a cliched phrase. It's like you can always see so much more from that vantage point. And so how do you not have some sense of regret when we are humans who are trying to grow and evolve? There's no way that you can possibly look back at your younger years and not have a sense of like, oh, I wish I had known. Like, it's just not possible unless you stay like the same the whole time, which you don't. And so, yeah, I think originally I wanted to have a conversation on regret, but through this, I'm recognizing that if I didn't, then maybe that would mean that I wasn't evolving as much as I have. And that's pretty cool. When you
Or
look,
is there like an acceptance that, and if you accept, do you regret it? I don't know.
I think it's probably both. I mean, I'm in the process of accepting, and I am grateful for the experience of both emotions and all of it in between, because it's all expressions of life, but because I don't know, it makes it more real, and it allows me to really get firmer right now so that I know what I'm living into, and I know what I'm living into. And I can be a little gentler with myself now, because I think it can create a lot of pressure for myself if I'm just like, I don't want to regret. I should. And it's like, no, you're going to regardless. So just chill the fuck out and just be here and do the best that you can, let go of the rest, and pay attention to what you regret so that you can actually do something different along the way. You know, like, I think seeing you start to live out an idea that I've had in my dreams and my vision, you know, when I would do visioning all the way since I was 30, it was like, I live in a van and I work from the road and I have full freedom. And, you know, I found life coaching. So that was the first step. It was like, okay, now I need to get this certification. And then, you know, I find a way to like make the life coaching job that I had more mobile. And then COVID happens, which makes everything more digital, and it's like happening. And there was always something that I was still like, I'm not quite ready. I'm not quite ready. I'm not quite ready. And then I see you start to take it and I'm like, fuck this. Like, wait, what the fuck am I waiting for? You know? And so I think being able to feel that sense of regret for not having done it sooner, or jumped in and just done it, or whatever, got me to pull the trigger now and to be like, it's time. Like, no more waiting. It's time now. And so yeah, there is an acceptance piece, but I think that I would have gone into a conversation around regret being like, wah. And now I'm sitting here being like, it's actually a pretty cool emotion, just like how all of them are messengers. So I'm curious, when you look out at the rest of the year, what is the actual question that I want to ask? What shows up for you?
I feel like it's still really blurry, but a little bit better than it was. I'm playing in like the essence and form space where before I left California, I was like, I want to buy my Airstream. I want to be out, you know, on the road. And then kind of realizing that part of the vision, it wasn't time for it yet. Like, I did audibly hear like the not yet when I checked in with myself. And I had a really hard time with that because that felt like action that I could take to get closer. And specifically when I was in Paso, and I do think I hit one of my lowest points where I was just like, what is even the point of getting out of bed right now? Like there's, like I had this, like the Airstream felt like this like beacon of hope, right? Of I get this Airstream and then I'm going to start this new venture. And when I heard not yet, it was just like that little bit of hope that I had just felt like it was gone. And it also felt super easy just to say then like, just stay here, just stay where you are. Like what are you really going to do then? And to your point, like, I mean, I did jump and I jumped in a way that I didn't think I was going to. And I definitely don't think I really felt ready. Like I hardly even told people when I was leaving San Luis Obispo that it was happening because it felt so like such an idea that was out there, right? Like I kept on, like I would talk about it, but I didn't really like put a date on it. I was like very wishy-washy because like I was like, I don't know, I don't know if this is really going to happen. So anyway, to get to your question, like, what do I see in the rest of the year? Like, I still think I have that vision, but I'm also trying not to get too wrapped up in the form of like, I need this Airstream to live this mobile life. And I can see that now. I don't have an Airstream. I am traveling across the country right now, working remote, and I'm doing like the essence. I mean, basically even almost the form really of like what I wanted. But to me, like I was really clinging on to the Airstream as the vehicle to get me there. And I do still think it's a part of like what I want, but I'm not even sure if that's going to happen in 2020. Like that might be a 2021 thing. So right now, from like, I guess a logistical standpoint, like I am still just going to travel for a little bit more. Like I have about a month left of for sure, like on the road traveling. And then I'm going to kick it in Wisconsin for a while. And I think that's also just going to be really focusing on like what foundation do I need to lay for my passions, my career, like how I want to make money in 2021 to make sure that I've done the work, because right now I'm like living the half of it, but it is a balance, right? Like where I think I told you, like there are certain courses that I bought that I'm interested in getting into, but I'm also realizing like I have my full-time job and I want to be able to explore these places that I'm at. So it's like why try to add like a bunch of other stuff on top of it. Like I want to hold that off for the end of the year when I am in a place that, yes, I can still explore and venture, but like I'm probably going to need outlets anyway. And then regroup and just keep checking in from there. Like what does that look like? Do I buy the Airstream? Do I just keep living out of my cross track and traveling around? I mean, like there is possibility. I think that's something that you've taught me specifically through life coaching is I tend to want to plan and have this definitive thing, and then when the plan doesn't happen, I can easily get frustrated and like shut down and just feel like it's all fucking trash then. And how can I continue to stay open to whatever presents itself at the end of the year? Because at this point I am really pretty fucking free right now. Like I really have no attachments to anything, so I'm just like, not that I'm just crossing my fingers and like being like, I'll go wherever, but at the same time I'm just like, I think something cool is going to show up. I just have to pay attention at this point. Like I have my short-term trajectory, and now it's just time to continue to be present and to just see what life is going to throw at me and make my decisions then. So it's a very not solid answer as far as logistics, but I think that's also been a part of the journey this year, is just me learning to kind of have a plan, but also really just to be able to throw that plan away and go with the flow. And I don't think the Jenell of 5-10 years ago would be able to do that. So that's been interesting. What about you?
Muted. That's the second time today I did that. I think the two things that came up for me when I asked you the question was focus. So really honing in on like the most important things for me right now instead of spreading myself so thin. So, really getting this certification and figuring out how that, I got it specifically so that I'd have the ability to coach more communities of people with more, having the credentialing to be able to do that. And so really like following through on those things. And, we got the RV. And so it's, how do I make sure I know how to use it 100%? Like, how do I learn about all the features in it and use the features that were created? Not just that, oh, I don't know, it has this thing and I don't really know what it's for. Like, I want to know, like, they put it in there for a reason. And so I think it's depth a little bit, depth of RV life, depth of this certification, like focusing in on that. And then depth of what does it actually mean to choose myself, to really feel whole. And not that it has to be wholeness all the time, but know how to drop into that space of wholeness and listen and act more often than not. And then learning how to manage or regulate what happens after I do that. Because I think I have an expectation that when I act from my heart, everything's just gonna like sync up, and that's not always what happens. Or maybe that is what's happening, even though it doesn't look like it. And so the full life cycle of actually like really leaning into what that looks like. So I think those are kind of the three things that I'm really focused on. And then I have like a whole list of things for 2021 that I'm like excited to start to dabble in, but it really feels like those are 6 months from now. And those happen once I've been able to like reestablish some of these foundations for me. And I'd like to laugh more. I'm such a goofball. Like, I'm so silly and like loud and energetic, and like I can be really obviously quiet and introspective and deep, but there's this part of me that's just like so quirky and doesn't take life seriously at all, and just is like laughing hysterically and getting people around me to just like laugh. And I miss that. And so I'm trying to just be more playful in my life. And I've found that the more I get connected to choosing myself, the easier the playfulness is seeming to come. So I'm just kind of paying attention to that. But yeah, I think that's my word of the year was brave. I still think that is my word of the year. And I've been listening to a lot of Brene Brown audiobooks, and her braving is like her thing. And so it's kind of funny that she has like come back in to give it more context and layers. And part of braving includes boundaries and like all this stuff. And so, yeah, it feels, even though when I landed on that word, I was like, oh my God, that's so obvious and cheesy. But now I'm kind of like, no, I still kind of feel that way, but I also really know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And similar to you, I don't have a very clear indication of 2021, like at all. And so I'm just trying to be on the stuff that I'm on, like just focusing on those things. And as new stuff shows up, kind of gut checking it with myself of like, is this now more important than one of these things? If not, I have like a list in my phone of stuff of like, okay, stuff to not forget. And so, but so far, I think these feel like the steps. So, or the focuses for me. So.
I'll add, I mean, bravery ties into it, but continuing to face fears and to be vulnerable, which vulnerability is for me innately a fear as well. And just practicing standing in my truth, because I do think I'm going to face a lot in 2020 still, and continue to face a lot that will make it challenging to be this new version of myself, and people that have not met this new version of me yet or haven't really seen it in full and might not like it, and being prepared for that.
Yep. I know that one too.
Yeah. So that one, I'm definitely on the road. I feel like it's easier to practice with people where stakes are a little bit lower, and like,
you're
I
like,
absolutely have
nice to meet you. See you later. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have my friends from California that have like seen this process and like they're chill, and then it's like meeting new people, and just you could easily just be like, well, cool, you don't like me, bye. But I think specifically going back to Wisconsin as what I consider to be a completely different person. And I think a lot of people will accept me and be like super happy and not even bat an eyelash. And I have a fear that some people won't, and that I will back down to an old self. And just knowing that, I feel like I won't do it just because I have that awareness. But
or you will and you won't. And that's the part that I meant of like the back half, the full cycle of it, of like the concept, the execution, and then I don't know, what do sports teams do? The off season? I don't know.
Sports, ball, sports.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, this is great. I like these conversations, even though they are a little uncomfortable for me, just from the standpoint of like, I am sharing a lot more than I think I do in a normal episode. But like you said, it is really cool. I think just to see that like we're on this journey too. We talk about it. We do share our journey with our guests, but to have the time for you and I just to be like, hey, we're still hosting this podcast. We still don't really have it figured out. We're still in it with you guys. I'm still a fucking mess. Like,
I'm still a fucking mess. Yeah.
And this is life. Like, this is fucking life. And I'm sick of, I mean, whatever, people can say it, but I am kind of sick of just like seeing people that are like, I mostly have it figured out. I'm past that. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. If you think you're past that,
if you think you're past that, then you're not. You're absolutely not.
Which, not to be like an elitist.
Let me tell you something. Yeah.
Right.
Except
and not to be like an elitist about
it,
but I'm just like, come on. I was like, no, actually, like, because I used to feel so icky about that. Then I was like, everyone else has it figured out. And I'm like, they're all fucking lying to themselves. Like, I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm a fucking mess all the time, and I will continue to be a mess because that means I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm challenging myself. And do not look at me and pretend that this is not honorable. This mess is an honorable mess. So I'm just gonna end it on that.
No, I do appreciate it, and especially because I can't burn these, so I'll have them for life to be able to go back to. Maybe I'll hire you to highlight my moments.
Check glasses to like push them up right now. I'll give you a report. It's like all those data companies that work with the marketing.
For the first 13 months.
Here's your Gartner report. I noticed that.
No, seriously, do you want to do that?
I don't know if I get that analytical, but when I do it, it's just like trends. I'm just like, you've said this 14 times. Like, have you made a change? Or are you just saying it and not actually doing anything about it? So it's more that. Or it's like to get over things too. Like when you're playing the movie trailer of like past things and experiences that are no longer in your life versus the documentary of like, oh yeah, that's actually why that is not a part of my life anymore.
Yeah. I think it's
But in my mind, I'm romanticizing it.
Yeah, it's cool though to, like, for me, I think that I get too wound up in the data of it and like too wrapped up in like overwhelmed in all of the like, oh my God, how does this fit? And then what does this do? Da, 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 da. And so for me, it's been more helpful to let it go and trust that whatever's coming up now is what has continued to, and I have the support structure to support me. But that's not to say that that's the right way for everybody. Like, my mom is totally like you, and
there's
that
safety
supports
in data
her.
For me.
And maybe
like
that, and maybe there's safety in data, and it also still works for you, Yeah. Like, and then for my mom too, I know that that's a way for her to be able to see how far she's come, which is pretty cool. So I'm like, there's merit to all of it, So. Yeah.
remember that I'm getting what I asked for. That's the other thing, Journal. I'm like, asked for this in November of 2019,
Yeah, you
and
gotta
here
be
we
careful
are.
with that one. But
Here
don't
we
be
are.
careful because it's so much more fun. Just
It really
throw
is.
yourself
I'm just
into
like,
it.
you asked for this one. All right. Well, it was great to catch up.
Yeah, you
We
too.
will-
So,
Yeah, go.
we have to say goodbye. Sorry. I was like, do you want me to send you this recording?
That's all I did. I'm just going to end it like this. Yes, please drop the
So
recording in the
awkward.
Google Drive. For anyone who wonders what happens behind the scene at the end of the podcast, drop it in the drive.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the True North Collective podcast. For more from Rachel and I, check us out on the gram at the True North Collective _. And if you liked what you heard, please consider leaving us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Until next time.